Welcome to my channel Living Linux. Now that I know that EFI is working on the Libre Computer Alta, I wanted to test something a bit out of the ordinary. I mean, most of the time Debian, Ubuntu, Arbium, they will work on a single board computer, but you always need a specific image for that specific single board computer. But when you have EFI working, then you have more options to try different distros. So here you can see that I've booted openSUSE Tumbleweed. I actually wanted to try to test Peppermint OS, and you can see that they do have an ARM version, and that one works on my Phytium D2000. But unfortunately, when I tried it on the Libre Computer Alta, I got an error message about a missing font for GRUB. So yeah, I'm a bit wondering why I didn't see that error message on my Phytium D2000. I don't know if anything changed with the image between when I tested it on the Phytium and when I tested it on the Libre computer. But yeah, I didn't want to go through the process of rebuilding an ISO image, adding the fonts and those kind of things. Perhaps I will do that somewhere in the future, but I wanted to do something a bit more easy, and that turned out to be openSUSE. So you can see that they have ARM images. So what I did is that I downloaded the offline image in my case. Probably it will also work with the network image. And I don't have an eMMC, and since it's not possible to boot from USB at the moment, because I think they do a reset in the whole EFI GRUB boot process. So I installed it on a micro SD card. I booted from the micro SD card, and I let the installer install openSUSE on a micro SD card through a USB adapter. So here is an example of one that is similar to this one. I think I have an older one because this one claims to be USB 3.2, and I think when I got my USB adapter for microSD, these were not available at the time. So yeah, I also tested Manjaro. What I wasn't really happy about was that it was still on kernel 6.1 something. Perhaps it is possible to upgrade the kernel, but again, just as a first test, I wanted to do something simple. So again, here you can see that we're on kernel 6.11 here. Now I have to admit, I do see some small graphical glitches, but I think it is still workable. So what I usually do is we're going to test WebGL Aquarium. So once it is fully loaded, we see 500 fishes. Seems to be around 50 frames per second. So let's just try 5,000 fishes. And that's, of course, makes it more difficult, but still a respectable 12 frames per second. Now, I'm not really sure if this is AV1. Yeah, I think this is AV1. So the Amlogic doesn't have hardware acceleration for AV1. But we'll let it play anyway, just as an example. Oh, and I don't have sound working, so we'll have to make do without sounds. Perhaps you can see a bit of flickering with the trees. It looks okay, but you can see there's a lot of dropped frames, but the animation is watchable. Now let's see if we reload it, if we get a different codec. Yeah, of course you can try to force it with a plugin like H264ify. Let's see what we get here. No, that's still AV1. So, but even when we have hardware video decoding working, that doesn't always mean that it's working with a web browser. And I think also that openSUSE seems to be on the cautious side, because by default you don't get H264, it seems, or I don't know if it's just an issue with VLC, but usually VLC just takes the video decoders that are available from the system. So H264 doesn't seem to be there by default, so I assume H265 won't be there either. But VP9 is available. Do we see anything here? Well, you can see that is almost 4K, but you don't see the codec. But here you can see it's VP9. So this is, let's just say, comparable to 4K. Like I said, I still see some small graphical glitches here and there, but the decoding seems to be hardware accelerated. So that's not bad. Actually, that's quite good. So yeah, I have to still investigate if I can get the hardware video decoding working in a web browser or not. I'm not really sure if I'm going to do that on openSUSE. I will, yeah, try some more distros and see what is most stable for me. But in itself, this looks promising. Now, as a last test, I want to do PlayStation 2 emulation. Now, this is a little bit different from what I usually do. So when we check the OpenGL information, you can see that by default it's 3.1. And then usually we just try to activate a higher version like this. So if we check it again, now it's 3.2. But for instance, with something like my Pinebook Pro and on the Rockchip RK3588, it would show 3.3. And actually, this is not enough to get EtherSX2 working. So it really insists on 3.3. Now, there is a trick to spoof OpenGL 3.3 compatibility. You know, like this probably means that you do get some glitches here and there because something is not supported. But at least we can get an idea of the performance. So we're running on, let's just say, the original PlayStation 2 resolution. So here you can see that not everything is supported. But I guess the general picture that looks okay for, let's just say, a single board computer with 4 A72 cores and 2 A55 cores. So I'm going to let it run until the text effect, because that's where some single board computers really show a slowdown. And it will also happen here, but not that severe. I mean, up till now we basically have 30 frames per second. So, and I think the performance is, let's just say, somewhere between a Raspberry Pi 4 and a Raspberry Pi 5. So here comes the text effect. So here you can see that it drops to, let's just say, 23 frames per second. Well, I have even seen it drop lower on a Raspberry Pi 5, but I think that's because the GPU of the Raspberry Pi 5 is a bit limited. And of course, the Raspberry Pi 5 has better CPU cores. So this is just a quick look at openSUSE on the Libre Computer Alta. Like I said, I don't think I am going to use this as my stable distro. I'm going to investigate if I can start from the Ubuntu 22.04 image from Libre Computer itself and then upgrade to 24.04 and see if I can get that stable. I already tried it, but I had some problems, let's just say, with the app launcher. So Ubuntu also has something like this in the bottom left corner, but then you get just immediately just all your applications. That didn't seem to work after I did the upgrade, so that's something I have to look into. So, but like I said, it's very interesting to see that we have EFI working on the Libre Computer Alta. Perhaps I still need to update to the latest firmware because I don't have a working keyboard in GRUB. So that means that I usually have to wait for the timeout that it will boot the default option. So when you try this yourself and you're stuck in the same situation, yeah, sometimes it can take like even a couple of minutes before it really starts booting. So give it some time, but most of the time it will boot, unless you run into a situation like I did with Peppermint OS, where it complained about a missing font. So this is all for now, and I hope to see you again in my next video.